Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar at SnapAV. My name is Ricky Pishoff, and I'm one of the technical trainers here at SnapAV. And it's looking like this may be one of our biggest webinars ever. So this is a very, very important topic for all of our dealers, and it's a very important topic for us as a company as well. A few housekeeping tips before we get into the webinar itself. There is a question and answer panel in your control panel. Just simply type in any questions that you might have. We may be covering that topic that you type, so wait till the end. Go ahead and type them in as the webinar is going along, and at the end we'll address as many of the questions as we possibly can. We do have a panel of experts that's going to be answering questions real time in that panel as well. So just go ahead and ask your questions as they come to your mind, and we'll make sure we'll get them answered. The other thing is we will be recording today's webinar so that you can share it with other workers or go back and review it. It will be available. Usually it takes about 2 days to process it, and then we'll post it on the training tab. A lot of dealers are not familiar yet with the training tab on the SnapAV website. Up in the top black banner, there's the word training. Simply click on that, scroll down to webinars, and you'll be able to find this webinar. Again, give us a couple of days. We're also going to follow up with a follow-up email to you, reminding you about the recording and also giving you a link to where you could go and see it as well. So give us a couple of days to get this processed, and we'll get it back up on the website for you guys. So without any more delay, I'm going to introduce today's presenter, and then we'll get right into the webinar. Today's presenter is Derek Webb. Derek's one of my brothers in the training department. We've been working together for quite a while now, and Derek is definitely the guy to go to for information about this product category, as he's been living with this product for quite a while now. Some of you guys may have already experienced some of this product, but it's been in a warehouse now for a short period of time, and we're selling quite a bit of it. So let me pass this over to Derek. Derek, let's take it away.
Thanks, Ricky. And hello, everyone. I really appreciate you guys taking some time out of your day to come see us and experience this new product with us today. Something we're really excited about. It's a fun new product from SnapAV that we recently released. It's been out for about 2.5 weeks now. And that product is MoIP, Media over IP. It's a new product from Binary and SnapAV. It's something that we've been working on for a long time. Media distribution itself is still really critical to your business, to our business in general. We know that's really important for you guys. You're still installing it frequently, but as technology has progressed, it's gotten a lot harder to sell traditional matrix switchers as well as install them. There's a lot of restrictions there, right? So there are other IP solutions that are out there today and have been around for some time, but what we've seen is they've been difficult to buy, install, and configure. So it doesn't have to be that hard. Today, we're going to talk about our solution and what we've done to really make this a go-to solution for you to make your lives easier, day in and day out. So without further ado, let's get rolling here. So on the webinar today, you have myself, as Ricky said. I am a product training specialist here at SnapAV. We have Brian Holden here as well. He is the director for media distribution. He'll be answering some of your questions later on in the webinar. Rachel Grah is here as well. She's a project manager for the media distribution team. And then as you guys all saw, Ricky is here as well. He's also one of our product training specialists. So we're going to go over a few different topics today. The first is we're going to talk about what is IP media distribution. What does that mean? What is it like in the market today? Kind of where has it been? Then we're going to talk about what is MoIP. What is our solution? What do we do differently here? We're going to then build a solution. We're going to show you how easy it is to build a solution from scratch. And then we're going to go into the actual setup itself. Can it really be that simple? And then we'll wrap it up with just some tips and whatnot, bring it full circle with a recap on the whole solution itself. So first things first, what is IP media distribution? IP media distribution, it's also known as AV over IP, HDMI over IP, video over IP. Some people call it networked video. It's all kinds of things, right? But what it really is the transmission of audio-visual data over a traditional Ethernet network. So over a network that you would have in your home, in your business, whatever it may be, that's the idea of audio AV over IP. The biggest opportunity, the biggest gain with AV over IP and IP media distribution has always been the ability or the no longer need to have a dedicated video matrix. It's kind of like taking the chains off the system. This allows you to build systems much easier and scale the system appropriately for what is required on a specific job. So we'll get more into that as we build through this, but really what it allows you to do is have a system that is perfect for commercial, but also perfect for residential. It's large and small scale. It's whatever fits your job, and that's what's really unique about it. So before we go a little bit deeper, I want to talk about the history, right? AV over IP has actually been around for a long time. Some of you guys that have been in this industry a while, you've probably seen it, some 15, 20 years ago, right? It's been there historically. It's been very expensive. It has been or has required some high-end network equipment to go along with it, along with some pretty advanced network expertise to install that kind of stuff. The biggest drawback has always been the bandwidth. It's been extreme amounts of bandwidth to run this on a standard network. Most homes couldn't afford the equipment to set up this kind of system to do that kind of thing, right? Over time, the industry has evolved, hardware has evolved, and the hardware has allowed us to develop ways to compress this audio, video, this HDMI, this high quality content to work on a standard Ethernet network. When I say standard, I mean a 1 gigabit per second network, what you see in most of your jobs today. There are still plenty of systems that you can do a much higher end system, but what we're doing today and what we're going to talk about is compressed video. So we are compressing. AV over IP is a compression of the video that's coming in, and through that compression allows you to put it on the standard network and then decompress it at the other end. Some of the higher end solutions out there that are also using a lesser form of compression, the key is that they're still compressing the video, require a much higher end network, 10 gigabits per second. But we're going to talk about our solution today, which is on that 1 gigabit per second compression, allows you to function on a standard network. So that's kind of the history, right? Kind of talking about where it's been and what's changed, right? So the next kind of piece in the equation is, why make the switch? Why jump into this boat? The big thing is that the industry is moving here. A lot of our competitors are here, have already been here for a while, and they've done a good job at it. But the industry is continuing to go this direction. And the biggest thing we talk about, and we talked about it before, is AV over IP gives the flexibility to deliver great quality video across the entire job. You buy the equipment you need based off the size of your job. You are no longer restricted by the size of your matrix and how many ports you have open. This allows you to save your customer money up front. And then, as you know, that customer down the road is going to want to add a device, add a TV somewhere down the road, right? And you get that 4x4 matrix already installed. They want to add a fifth TV. You either have to say, sorry, you can't make it a part of your video distribution today, or you have to get them to upgrade to a larger matrix, which is a much larger price increase for them, and it sometimes hurts your ability to make more money. With AV over IP, when you want to add one room, one TV, you just buy the equipment for that one room. You don't have to upgrade an entire system for one TV. We're going to go more into that as we go through the day. But again, it is that simple, and we're going to go through that. So the next thing we want to talk about is, what is MoIP, right? I keep saying AV over IP, IP media distribution. So what is MoIP? MoIP is not a brand or a product. It stands for media over IP. It simply is what we're calling our solution. Feel free to call it MoIP whenever you want to. It's our term for it, but by no means is it a standard or something that are words to live by. But it is our brand of AV over IP or IP media distribution. This is a solution that is developed by SnapAV. I want to make an important point about that too. When I say developed by SnapAV, you guys have known us for a long time. This is a product that we actually developed in-house. The software and firmware was built here in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is a custom-made solution by us for you as our customers. And because of this, we control the flow of updates and fixes. As we hear feedback from you, anything you guys see in the field, we are able to react quickly and develop solutions based off what you're seeing and what updates need to be made. It's an exciting point, right? This is something we built in-house here. So we had a lot of input from the industry to make this right for you guys as installers. So now that you know kind of what our solution is on a basic level, let's talk about what makes up our system. What are the components that make up our system? The biggest thing here is there's not a ton that you have to think about. We only have really 3 unique components that go with our system, and then some other auxiliary components that go in with it. And through those 3 components, again, we said it makes it really easy to buy. You don't have to jump around and pick products for certain things or whatnot. You pick these 3 products and you're good to go. So the first part of every single MoIP system in the industry is going to be your MoIP controller. The MoIP controller is the brains of the operation. It is a very small metal box. If you used it before already in the last 2 weeks, you would see it. If you haven't already, it'll be pretty surprising when you see it for the first time. It's really small and it's super easy to mount into your rack. Like I said, this is the brains of the operation. It is controlling all of your switching. It is managing all of your EDID information. It is controlling your IR link settings. This is the piece that your control system will talk to, and this controller is controllable via IP only. And again, to clarify here, you only need 1 controller per job. Just want to make that clear for everyone. The next piece in every job is going to be your transmitter. Some manufacturers may call this a decoder, or sorry, an encoder as well. This is the device that is taking that high quality HDMI video and encoding it into a network stream to pass across your network. This device is, again, used for your sources. So you need a transmitter per source on your job. So think about a matrix, right? You have however many sources you have is how many inputs you need. For this, you only need a transmitter per source. This device is PoE powered. We highly recommend you power it via PoE. It is supports visually lossless 4K. It is HDR and HDCP 2.2 compatible. It also has multi-channel audio support. So it supports Dolby Atmos and DTX10. You can easily send this multi-channel audio to your AV receiver using the HDMI loop out. So it's a pretty cool feature to allow you to branch off of this actual transmitter without having to use any kind of audio breakout device or DM embedder. You can also extract 2-channel PCM audio from your source and extract that and go into a multi-room audio system. So you can send that multi-room audio across your entire home. And then you can also inject 2-channel PCM stereo audio to replace your HDMI audio that's going through that transmitter as well. Lastly, you can also force an audio format in the settings of the actual controller for this transmitter to reduce any kind of EDID complications. So if you have an output that or all of your outputs don't need surround signal, but your source is sending surround signal and you don't want it to, it's giving you trouble, you can force that to a 2-channel signal so your source knows to quit sending that surround signal, right? That's a helpful feature in terms of being able to manage your job and whatnot. The next piece of a MoIP system is going to be your receiver. Your receiver is your decoder. It's the device that is decoding all of that HDMI over your network. You need a decoder or a receiver per TV. So again, a transmitter per source, a receiver per TV. This device is also PoE powered. Again, supports 4K. The cool thing here, you guys that have been doing traditional HDMI matrices for a while now, you're able to mix and match these between 4K and 1080p TVs. If you guys have been using matrix switchers in the past, you're very familiar with having to set a lowest common denominator for your displays in the home. If you have that one 720p display, it's going to ruin the rest of your 1080p displays or 4K displays in the system, right? The cool thing with our receivers, you can mix and match your resolutions. So if you have that 1080p display, you can dumb that receiver down so that it will function and not impact the rest of the stuff in your system and whatnot. Super easy to do there, and we'll show you guys that a little bit later. Again, HDCP 2.2 compatible. These are also come with video wall support natively up to our 4x4 configuration, which is pretty cool. It's super simple to set up, which I'll show you guys later. But the video wall support's native, no extra hardware needed for that kind of setup. So that's the gist of the hardware, right? In terms of the hardware needed to transmit the video. The next piece in every MoIP system is going to be your network switch. So MoIP, you'll need a layer 2 managed PoE switch. So that is the key. It has to be layer 2 managed, and it has to be PoE, right? So you can power your transmitters and your receivers. We recommend Arachnus, obviously, from the beginning. It's what we use to test the MoIP solution day in and day out. It's a great solution. Our 210 and 310 series switches will work across the board there, up to the 48 port 210 series. So technically, with the 48 port, you can have 47 end devices there. What I mean by that is you can have 47 TXs and RXs. So you can have potentially a single 1x46 splitter, whatever works there, right? The one key I want to make here, though, we've actually gotten this question quite often since we've released it as well, is that with Arachnus today, we can only support a single switch deployment. And what I mean by that is you cannot span across multiple Arachnus switches for a MoIP solution. The reason being, and we'll be honest there, is that we only support a 1 gig uplink from switch to switch with Arachnus, where MoIP is sending upwards of 700 megabits per second right across your network for a single link. So we can only support one single switch solution today. Third-party switches are compatible. So if you are familiar with the MoIP setup as it is today, you could very easily get that set up on your own. If you want to do a multiple switch installation, just make sure that third-party switch does support a 10 gig uplink in between the two switches or more, right? But that's the reason why we say with Arachnus, a single switch solution. But again, with our 210 series switch, you can go up to our 48 port switch and you have a single input for your controller, and then you have 47 other ports for transmitters and receivers. So that should fit, most of your jobs today, right? And we can answer more questions with that later in the presentation as well if you guys have any. So again, layer 2 managed PoE switch is the next component in your MoIP solution. And then in terms of hardware, you're kind of done after that. The next is, choosing your control system that suits your job or suits your company, right? We have come out of the gate with a lot, from the beginning. We wanted to make sure that we had plenty out there for you guys. So today we have URC, Control4, Crestron, RTI, and then a DTV game control as well. Drivers are already ready for this. Again, as I mentioned before, the system is controllable via IP only. We do support IR routing in the system, so that gives you the ability to route IR from any receiver to any transmitter, right, to give you that control. And then we also support RS-232 over IP, so that you can transmit those RS-232 commands over IP to your TVs as well, or any end device that might be there, right? So, great solution there for those control systems there. There'll be more down the road. Since we've released, there's been plenty of requests for tons out there. So we're going to work with whoever wants to talk to us and work with us. We'll work with them to try and get something out there, right? So the next piece of the equation is the local UI. Again, this is kind of reconfirming what we talked about earlier. This local UI is custom built by us, by our engineers here in-house. This is a really cool solution. The really awesome thing is you'll get live previews of your source content through the local UI at all times. That's a great feature for troubleshooting, so that if your sources are working. Is it turned on? Are you not getting any kind of handshake, whatever it may be? Local UI has a lot of great features. We'll show you some of those later. But again, custom built by us, which we're really excited about. And the last piece of the equation is OvrC. So OvrC is still a really big piece. Our integration today is basic in the terms of what OvrC can do in the grand scheme, but it still offers a lot. So the first thing you get with OvrC is the ability to troubleshoot. So if a client calls you remotely, you can log into a system via OvrC and change EDID information, switch the system, pull up the matrix now so you do any kind of control system switching you might want to do there for them. You can change audio formats, whatever it may be. We'll go through the settings later, but any setting that the system has, you can control via OvrC, including rebooting it, right? It's just simple things like that. Firmware updates, that's a big one. Any firmware update we release, you can push via OvrC, so you don't have to make an extra truck roll to spend on those kind of firmware updates. You guys know firmware updates in OvrC. We've done a lot of work there to make sure they're reliable for you guys. And the last piece of the equation is setup, right? If you're on the job site and you're trying to install the system and you're just having some trouble getting it installed, you can call back to the shop. Somebody can log in and help you set it up right away. Same thing with our tech support team here. We can take you through the process with setup via OvrC at all times. You'll see much more with OvrC down the road with this solution. Today, it's basic in terms of what we can do, and that's troubleshooting firmware updates, and set up all via OvrC right out of the gate. So that's kind of the components, right? The pieces that make up a MoIP system. But to kind of recap, there's those three main components: your controller, your transmitter, and your receiver. And then once you have those kind of picked out, you have your network switch to match the size of your install. So moving on from there, let's take a step forward. Let's build a system. Let's grow the system a little bit, and let me show you guys how easy it is to put a system together with MoIP, right? So building a system is pretty simple. Like I said, you don't have to try and plan in a weird or different kind of way. You can grow the system any way you need to. 4K TVs in some rooms, 1080p TVs in other rooms, whatever makes sense for your job. You don't have to buy different equipment for different resolution TVs. You buy the same stuff, one controller, and then a transmitter and receiver per source and then per TV, right? And you get your system going. So let's build a basic system, right? I'm going to take you guys through a simple network or a simple job in a restaurant or bar, and then we're going to build it out for you. So let's say you have a restaurant or a bar. You have kind of four main locations in this bar, right? Or this restaurant. You have an outdoor section. You have a main bar left and a main bar right, and then you have a main dining room. You also have a central rack location in this bar, right? You have 7 TVs out the gate, and those TVs are kind of spread throughout the restaurant. Then you have 5 sources. Let's just say those are DirecTV sources, whatever they may be, right? You have 2 sources that are actually living in your behind 2 TVs in the actual restaurant or at the bar itself, and then 3 back in your rack. So remember what we said, you need a receiver per TV. So we're going to buy 7 receivers. We're going to link those receivers via HDMI, right, to the TVs themselves. From there, you have a transmitter per source, right? We talked about that. Obviously HDMI between the 2 there. You have your controller. So in this job, we have what's now a 5x7 matrix right now, right? We have 5 sources and 7 receivers. It's a 5x7. Today, you'd have to buy an 8x8 matrix to make something like that work, potentially. Maybe a 6x4 plus 2, right? But again, there's too many options. This is a simple solution. So you have your MoIP controller. You have your control system to control the whole thing, whatever that may be, whatever suits you. And then you have a network switch. You home run every single TX and RX back to your network switch if you're doing a single switch deployment. And it's all powered via PoE, so no extra power supplies or anything like that. You just have your network connection between your TX, your RX, and your network switch. And then everything is set up. You enable all your settings in your switch and whatnot, and you're ready to roll here, right? This is a simple job of 5x7 matrix setup for your system. Say down the road, the customer comes in and says, hey, you know what? We added a new section to our restaurant. We want to add a TV. We actually already bought the TV and we put it outside. Can you guys go ahead and add to the system? Depending on what kind of matrix you already had installed beforehand, you may be restricted. You may not be able to do that. But all they did was add a new TV. So in this scenario, say, okay, we want to add a new TV, great. All I have to do is buy you a new receiver for the system, run that back to the switch, and it's added to the system. Say you are restricted by the size of your matrix, you might have to buy a whole new matrix, whatever it may be. It's much simpler here. All you have to do is scale the system for what it needs. This could have been a 5-source system and a 12-output system, whatever it may be. It could have been a 5x12 matrix. Whatever your job requires is how you build it. Again, it's a TX per source and RX per TV. Home run all those back to your network switch, have a MoIP controller to go with the system, and you're ready to roll. That's all it takes to build the system. Again, we wanted to keep the options simple, keep everything in front of you, not make it too complicated in terms of buying the solution. We don't want you to have to pick through a lot of different options. So that's building a simple install, right, for a simple job. The next thing we want to kind of go into is this solution really that simple? Did we do everything we could to make it that simple? And yes, we did. We want to make it as simple as it can be. Hopefully you've started to realize that is it really that simple? So the first thing I want to do when we talk about what's going on, I want to talk about what's happening in the background. How did we make this? And again, we're not doing anything special here. This is something that's been around for a while, but we made the process of getting here to be pretty simple. So the backbone of the networking portion of MoIP is a term called multicast in terms of what's happening. In networking, when you are communicating with another device, you are sending a message of some type. There are three main types of messages that go on in the network: unicast, broadcast, and multicast. I'm going to talk about those three to kind of help you understand what's happening in the background and why the next portion when we talk about setup is so important. So a unicast message in a main network, this may be a review for some of you guys. A unicast message is a one-to-one communication. So that is one computer communicating directly to another computer, or one IP address directly to another IP address. No one else in between. The second type of message in a network is a broadcast message. That is one IP address communicating to all IP addresses on the network at one time. So it's saying, think about it like an IR flasher, right? You have a 1x4 IR block, right? You bring in a single IR signal and you flash that signal to all devices at the other end. Now, typically it's okay if you have 4 of the same devices, but what if you have, 3 or 4 different things? It's also okay because only the device that needs that or is meant to recognize that request will see it. But in networking, the caveat there is in a broadcast message, everything acknowledges it. The last piece in the equation or the type of message that's out there is a multicast message. So a multicast message is one IP address that is talking to a specific group of IP addresses and only that specific group of IP addresses. It doesn't try to talk to everything else on the network at the same time like a broadcast message. So MoIP is using multicast to communicate to only its devices. Remember we talked about it still uses a lot of data. So without a switch that can manage multicast, and the feature that manages multicast is called IGMP snooping, without that switch that can manage IGMP or enable IGMP to manage multicast, what happens is MoIP will send out broadcast messages to every device on your entire network. So without enabling IGMP snooping to manage multicast, essentially your network will crash. It will not work. So that's an important first step that we're going to go through here, is setting up IGMP snooping for your system so that you can ensure that your system will not crash. Network setup is actually really simple. A lot of people in the industry have been nervous about this in the past in terms of what was required. There's no VLAN setup. There is no extra, set HDMIs, no spanning tree. All you have to do is enable IGMP snooping. It takes 9 clicks, including the login button of the switch to set this up. So you'll see on this video here, looping in the background on the screen for you, all you're doing is logging into the switch, selecting the advanced settings on the left-hand side of the network switch. You are going down to multicast and selecting multicast, which will drop down a new menu. You're selecting IGMP snooping. And then once you're in the IGMP snooping window or the menu, you enable it globally. You enable it per VLAN. So you only have one VLAN here. So you enable the snooping status for the VLAN. You enable fast leave. And then right below that, there's an option called courier state. The courier is what's basically polling your network to find all of these multicast groups, in this case being MoIP. So you enable that courier and you apply it, and it's done. Your network setup is complete. But it's imperative that you do this network setup before hooking up any MoIP devices. If you don't do it first, you're going to run into problems. So that's the first thing you do in every single job. Set this up. It's like I said, it's super easy to do. Nothing really advanced you have to do here. You're not going to screw anything up by setting this up for the most part. So you should be good to go here. Just set this up first. Once you set this up, your network setup is technically complete, and you can move on to plugging in the rest of your system and hooking up all your MoIP devices. So once you have your system plugged in, you will log into your MoIP controller for the first time. We recommend using Oversee as the first way to log into that system. All you have to do is obviously add that device to your Oversee account. If you already have an Oversee device there or you have Oversee Pro, it should automatically discover it for you. And you can go ahead and log into the local UI using Oversee right away. So the first thing you will do when you get into your system is you log in. Binary is the username and password. And you'll see right away there are no transmitters and receivers that it sees. All you have to do is click Discover, and it is going to scan your entire network and look for all of your transmitters and receivers. No manually inputting MAC addresses, serial numbers, having to have any kind of program to identify them. All you have to do is click discover, and it's going to find all of them quickly. This video is not sped up. You see how quickly it found those devices. It's a 4 transmitters, 4 receivers. It found in about 5 to 10 seconds, right? It's a really quick process there. It's going to automatically populate those, and the names are going to be the names of the MAC address per transmitter and receiver in your job. You're going to see right away it pulled in 2 sources that have video and then 2 that don't have video. So that's a transmitter and a receiver that have no video currently connected. And technically, after you discover your transmitters and receivers, your system is actually done technically. You could go ahead and start switching video, viewing video, whatever it may be. The system is technically complete as it stands. Obviously, there's much more you want to do in terms of tweaking it so that it fits your job and what makes sense. But that's the next step, right? In terms of the setup, is that once you discover everything, you can go ahead and start switching your sources to your displays and checking out your video. The next thing we typically recommend is going into your transmitters and making any kind of changes into those that you might need to. So on the main screen of the controller, you will see all of your transmitters there, and there is a little info icon that sits next to every single controller or every single transmitter. If you click that info icon, it's going to take you into the configuration section for that specific transmitter. In that transmitter page, or that configuration page, you're going to see info. Obviously, you see right away your live snapshot. You can refresh that on the fly, so you can make sure what's going on. You're going to have information around MAC address, model number, service tag information, all that kind of stuff. And then if you scroll down, the first option you'll see is an audio pass-through option. That audio pass-through option gives you the ability, like I said before, to force your audio input to something different. So if you don't want it to be on auto, you can say, hey, this needs to be 2-channel audio, so it can tell your source to only send 2-channel, whatever it may be. And then you're also going to see details around the input video coming in currently. So you're going to see obviously the resolution, the frame rate, what's the actual signal type and whatnot. All kinds of great info there for troubleshooting and whatnot to see what's going on. So that's what you're doing there for your transmitter. The biggest thing there, right, in terms of what I recommend you do is go ahead and give it a name. It makes your life easier going forward. Name it up front just to make things a little bit easier. The next piece of the equation is you need to go through and identify all of your receivers. So we don't show it here, but in the main screen at the top of the controller, you'll see a button labeled Identify Mode. And if you click on that button, what it will do is it's actually going to display on all of your TVs a text overlay of the information for each receiver. So once you're ready to label these, click Identify Mode and walk into every single room, and it's going to tell you what receiver you're currently looking at, so that you can have your controller on your laptop or on your tablet, whatever you're using to configure the system. You can bring up that controller, Identify Mode, identify which receiver is in which room, and go ahead and name it. It makes things a lot faster, a lot easier. You don't have to write down MAC addresses and then try and cross-reference those. Just enable Identify Mode, go through to each room, find out which receiver is which, label it in the controller, and you're good to go. Once you have it labeled, you're going to see a very similar look and feel to the transmitters. You're going to see information around that specific controller or around that specific receiver. You're going to have the ability to force a resolution. So if you have that old 720p, 1080p TV that a client wants to keep, even though they have 15 4K TVs in the home, you can go ahead and you can lower the resolution for that specific display, especially if it cannot down convert. And then you can also lower the HDCP to 1.4 because that TV may not support that 2.2, right? Again, it's flexible in the sense that not every TV has to match that. Just the TV that requires it has to match it. But for the most part, pass-through is good enough for everything else in the system. And then again, you're going to see that diagnostic information in terms of what is outputting from that receiver. So on one end, you have the transmitter that is showing you what's being seen, and then you have the receiver, which is showing you what's being output to that TV. So that is the receiver in terms of the initial setup there. That's kind of the simple setup for tweaking the system a little bit. The next piece in the system, we mentioned it before, is video wall support. Video wall support is really, really easy to set up. So if you scroll down to the bottom of the controller, you'll see a video wall option. If you click on that, setup, all it requires you to do is give it a name, select your video wall configuration. So whether that's a 2x2, 3x3, or 4x4. And then once you have the configuration, you then tell it which receiver goes where. So obviously, once you've named your receivers, this is much easier. Otherwise, you're going to see a bunch of MAC addresses in the receiver selection. So once you have all those named and you go ahead and you tell them where they're going to be, the last setting you have available is you can adjust for the bezel on your displays. So maybe you have some TVs that are really thick bezels, and what it allows you to do is measure those bezels and then input that information into the configuration here, and it's going to account for that so that it's not cutting off too much of your image. It'll space the image out so you're not cutting off things in between your bezels, right? So that's a really powerful feature to have at no extra cost. This is a part of the solution. It's super helpful for if you're going into like any kind of bar or restaurant that wants to have a big video wall for football on Sundays, or even that one client that wants to watch, football on the weekend or whatnot. They can switch between it and whatnot, right? So a cool solution there in terms of what you have access to with video wall control. Again, that's an optional piece. The next piece of the setup I want to talk about is your IR routing. So this is an important feature for us. The transmitter and receiver both support bidirectional IR without any additional equipment. That's important to understand. There's nothing extra you have to do, no extra devices to help enable that, no dongles you need. We support bidirectional IR on both the transmitter and receiver out of the box. The routing of IR on the transmitter and the receiver is configured in the controller. So no, you don't have to jump around. IR routes can be established from any one transmitter to any or all receivers. This is independent of video, so you can send IR across the system independent of video. So to kind of give you an example of what that means, a single IR input into a transmitter could be repeated out to every receiver in the system. So if you're on a job that is using all the same TVs, this will save you a lot of time and money since you don't need any extra IR equipment here. You just say, hey, I want this one transmitter to blast its IR to every single receiver that I see here, right? And you tell it which receivers are going to be a part of it, right? So you can, go ahead and select the transmitter for every receiver that you want to send that to. So if you have, 15 Samsung TVs, you only have to plug in one IR input into one transmitter and then make sure that you assign those here, and it will send that IR signal to that one transmitter and then split that to all 15 of your Samsung TVs and turn them all on and off appropriately. So really the only time you'd have to add more IR inputs into different transmitters is if you have a conglomerate of TVs that you have to, you want to try and control, right? But a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can have there. No more trying to make room for all those dongles in the back of a matrix or whatever it may be. It gives you a lot of flexibility. And again, it saves you time and money in the long run for this. So that's the setup. To kind of recap here, guys, it's really fast. It's really easy. Remember, it's going into your switch first, setting up IGP snooping. It takes 9 clicks. It should be a 5-minute setup there. From there, you go into your controller. You can access it quickly via oversee, and you are simply discovering your devices. And once you discover everything, give it all a name. Yeah, remember, we make it easy to give everything a name with that identify mode with the text overlay. It's a great feature to have. And then once you discover everything, you can tweak things a little bit based off your EDID information. You can tweak your IR link settings, whatever it may be. And then the next step for you guys is to go into your control system and link all that. So we're going to recap here a little bit. I gave you a lot of information here, right? I want to spend some time recapping it. Our goal with MoIP, Media over IP, was to build a solution that doesn't just make your life easier by making it easy to buy, install, and configure. Most importantly, we wanted to create a solution that you can be extremely confident in selling when you're meeting with that customer. That was the goal. That's why you see here, sell with confidence. Through making it easier to buy, install, and configure, it should give you confidence to sell the solution to your customer. That's our goal, is to give you something really robust and easy to use. So kind of recapping what goes on here in terms of what we kind of talked about today, right? Fast and simple setup. We feel like we have one of the fastest and simplest setups in the industry for AV over IP. It removes the complexity of all the advanced system design. It doesn't require any advanced network knowledge, and it just requires a layer 2 PoE switch. We have ultra reliable 4K with this system. It allows you it has built-in scaling on the RX end, on the receiver end, so you can mix and match those 1080p and 4K TVs. It's a flexible and scalable solution so that it fits in every job, not just the big jobs. You can scale up for whatever job you need it to. Oversee is available today for your remote management needs, and that's just the beginning for what it can do for you. It's a huge add for you guys. And then obviously, last but not least, is that control system integration. That's the kind of the part that brings it all together to make your life easier. So kind of bringing it all full circle, right, guys, is what we have done here in terms of what we're trying to accomplish is we want to change the game. We want to instill confidence in you guys. It's all in a big circle. We want you to be able to sell this solution confidently, because again, by selling it confidently, it allows you to design. So those two go hand in hand, sell and design. You get to sell a solution to your customer that can start small and grow large. You don't have to start large because you're future-proofing. You can start small and grow the system over time. That allows you to design a system easier so that you can sell it better and get more buy-in from your customers. From there, the install portion, right? You have to be able to install it and save money and time there as well. So you can save money for your customer, but also make more money in the long run. And then when you're installing it, less time installing. You don't have to hire a guy that has advanced network knowledge. You don't have to spend an hour on the phone with tech support setting this up or whatever it may be. This makes your life easier in terms of the install portion of it. Maintaining it. So maintaining is important. The ability to maintain the system via Oversee, the ability to do maintenance over time, to upgrade firmware, to make any kind of setting change when the customer has an issue. Whatever it may be, that remote access to your system is huge. That's a big deal for us. And obviously, regardless of anything you do on your own, our tech support team, our customer service team, our shipping, our warranty policies, all that is still in place with this product. So you're getting all this great stuff with the product along with the Snap AV way on top of that. Upgrading is important. So upgrading kind of goes hand in hand with Oversee, but as well as the hardware. You can upgrade a standard HD-based T system today. You don't have to go out and change the infrastructure of a job. As long as they're running Cat 5 or Cat 6 to a TV, you can take that HD-based system out and you can upgrade it to MoIP. It's easy. But also, as customers upgrade their stuff over time, you don't have to worry about them upgrading a TV and breaking your whole system. All you have to do if they change the TV and it's giving you trouble, go in, change their resolution potentially, and that might be all it is. If they're going from 1080p to 4K, go in, make sure you change it back to pass-through, so you're sending that 4K signal, and you're ready to roll, right? Tons of opportunity there. And obviously our goal through all this is to help you adopt a solution that you can stand behind consistently. You don't have to jump around from manufacturer to manufacturer, whatever it may be. We know that time is money for you as installers, and we want to give you something that you can use day in and day out and make money consistently across the board. Again, changing the game, building confidence with you guys. So that's kind of the gist that I have for you guys. That is all that I have in terms of what we're going to talk about today. I really appreciate the time. I am actually going to pass the Q&A session over to Brian Holden, who is the director for this product, and he is going to go through the questions you guys have submitted that he felt like stood out as broader questions. He's going to answer them for you. So he will read the questions out and answer them for you guys. Anything that we don't get to today, feel free to email us. And then you guys will also see a couple of open-ended questions at the tail end of this webinar that we would really appreciate if you guys ask going forward. Again, thank you guys.
Great, thanks, Derek. I'm Brian Holden, manage media distribution here at Snap under the Binary brand, and super excited about everyone being on the call. We had a tremendously large group here today, exciting. So I'm not going to read specific questions because we had many around the same area, but I'll touch on 5 or 6 key areas that popped up dozens of times as we went throughout the webinar today. One first question was around control systems. Is a control system required? So to control MoIP, a control system that is able to send IP commands to the MoIP controller is required. One question came in following that response was related to is there a way for an end user to use Oversee, an Oversee app, or the local UI to switch the system? It is not our intent for the local UI to be an end user facing interface. However, understanding budgetary concerns on some projects, certainly you could train a dealer to switch the system, as Derek had highlighted in the video captures during the webinar. The next question that came up was around mounting. So currently the products are shipping with standard rack mount ears, but in early September and then into mid-September, we'll be launching a very simple, strong branded MoIP rack kit that will allow you to mount it in two ways, both vertically and horizontally oriented, one being 6U by 10 devices and one being 1U by 2 devices, allowing the products to be mounted with jacks facing inward and outward for a tremendous number of flexible options. 2, IR came up as a continuous question as we went through this. Derek covered this in the webinar. I'll just reiterate. So with our solution, we support two-way IR, and this is built into each transmitter and each receiver. Other popular solutions require dongles at a great expense and a lot of complication. For IR, we allow two IR routes to be set up between any TX and any one RX or all RXs for a tremendous amount of flexibility in designing and deploying systems. The next question was around kind of existing network, existing infrastructure, category cabling installed. Standard networking rules apply here. Everything that Snap and Arachnus recommend for networking applies here. We're moving audio, video over the network. This means standard category cable, the distances apply, and we always recommended shielded in general in new installs, but certainly existing HD-based T infrastructure, existing network infrastructure will support the system terrifically. So next, let's talk about networking. So a tremendous amount of questions, and a lot of these questions come from knowledge of things that I've personally heard around the rules of the road when doing high bandwidth, low compression, visually lossless video over a network. Is concerned around bandwidth and what type of switches and networking do you need? Let's just put it to rest here. Derek mentioned multicast. Multicast solves the issue of you're going to flood all the other devices and clog the network. Multicast keeps everything talking to the devices it needs to, allowing you to commingle on a single switch, both MoIP devices as well as other standard network IP devices. Next, from inside the Arachnus family, questions around 210 and 310 switches. Which one do I use and when? This is really up to you, but the requirement here is layer 2 managed switch and PoE power. Both 210 and 310 support the necessary 7.5 watts. That's the maximum you'll ever need. We put a safety factor in there to support MoIP device on a given port. So both 210 and 310 will work well, allowing you to build systems on the Arachnus 210 all the way up to 47 ports. Now, the question also came rapidly around single switch deployments versus multiple switch deployments. For Arachnus, currently we support a single switch deployment. What that means, all TXs, RXs, and the controller are connected to that single switch. Other devices can be commingled on that switch, and that switch can be part of a larger network. If you follow the networking guide instructions, and also the quick link that you'll find in each box, if you go to snapav.com/MoIP setup, there's a series of simple steps that allow you to configure that properly to support that. Now, for multi-switch deployments, yes, MoIP can be deployed across multiple switches. To do this, as Derek mentioned, this requires multiple gigabit uplinks between switches. Same layer 2 rules apply. The general configurations and features required to support it are the same. The configuration is simply employing standard practices around cascading and stacking switches using multiple gigabit switches. What I would note is that across all solutions that operate in the IP media distribution space, the transmitters generate the data and the bandwidth And that is often the thing that is limited when deploying these systems. And there's more information in our networking guide. And just prior to CEDIA, early September, we'll be publishing a configuration guide that will allow all of you to deploy across multiple switches using a third-party switch. So overall, those are the most highlighted questions that I saw as we came across, and I will scan down, and at this point, I don't see any additional here. I would answer the question, right, here we go. Last one is around support, video quality support. So like other popular solutions out there, we support 4K, we support video with 60 Hertz, we support HDR. And to be very clear, like popular solutions in the market today, the ultimate output of the system is 4K at 30 Hertz, as we indicate on our website. And we do pass the HDR signals to the television, allowing greater brightness and contrast for what we say in our specifications is 8-bit HDR. This is a really great end video result, very high performance video that we would put up against any of the competitors out there. Let's see. So those are the questions. Derek, if you had any others that you wanted to highlight, those are the ones that were top of mind. I think there were a lot of questions around scaling at the endpoints. Other than that, I think we've answered all of them. I probably have another 70 to 100 specific questions to reply to over the next 24 hours to answer everyone's questions, which we will do, and then we will publish those questions through a FAQ available on the website. And you can submit questions forever through tech support and your salesperson as well. So if, Derek, did you want to close this out, or let me take it from here? So I'll close it out. So I want to thank everyone for their time today, and reach out if you have any questions.
Thanks, everyone.